Well, welcome everyone. My name is Drew Doty. I use he, him, his pronouns. I'm an education abroad coordinator in the Office of International Programs. I regionally advise for programs in Oceania, which is Australia, New Zealand, South Pacific Island nations. I also have a small portfolio of staff and faculty-led programs all over the world. And I am here today to talk to you all about opportunities to fund your education abroad program that are beyond scholarships. A couple things to keep in mind as we go through our presentation today is that in the audience, if you don't mind, just keep yourself on mute unless you want to jump in to ask a question. You can jump in at any point to ask a question, either over the video or just type it into the chat box. I will also be stopping a couple times throughout the presentation to answer any questions you might have as well. And then just because we've had a couple of technology issues earlier this week, if it seems that the slides maybe have stalled or doesn't make sense to what I'm talking about, please just jump in, let me know, and I'll try to get the slides caught up to where we should be, as they seem to be sticking from time to time. All right, I'm going to go ahead and move us along. All right, so today this is our agenda. We're going to first start talking about figuring out what your financial gap might be, looking at the anticipated costs of your education abroad program, figuring out what money you have, where you have funding coming in, and what you might need to fill. From there, we're going to look at how you can create a budget for yourself for your time abroad. We'll look at crowdfunding, different examples of crowdfunding, how you could create a really strong crowdfunding page. We'll explore some of the creative options that other CSU students have used to bring in some additional funds for their education abroad program. We'll briefly discuss financial aid advising. We are joined today by my wonderful colleague, Cindy Maris, who's an education abroad coordinator for financial aid. And then we'll wrap it all up, kind of summarize where we've been, and open it up for questions once again. All right, so here we go. We're going to dive into the not so exciting stuff. Let's talk about budgets. First thing, we want to figure out what your financial gap might be. And a great way to do that is to look at a program budget. So what you're seeing on this slide is a budget that is pulled from a CSU sponsored program. This specific one is a short-term staff and faculty-led program that happens over winter break. What your program budget looks like may be completely different from what you see here. But if it is a CSU sponsored program, it will be at least in this same format. The important thing for you to know is every program has a different budget, but it is a great place to find some really important information as you're trying to figure out how much you need to anticipate financially for your time abroad. So as we're looking at this budget sheet, what I really hope you pay attention to is the difference between billable and non-billable items. So you can notice up at the top, the first section is our kind of the billable items. These are things that include like your tuition fees, the program charge, your CSU education abroad fee, your insurance that is provided through CSU. And then I'm calling special attention here to round trip airfare. In this case, for this program that is shown here on this screen, round trip airfare is included in the billable items, meaning it's included in your program cost that you'll be charged from CSU. For a lot of programs though, probably the good majority of CSU programs, round-trip airfare is not included. And you will find this as a line item down in the non-billable items. It's just something to be aware of, because that could have a huge impact on the amount of money that you need to personally raise in addition to the program cost. So like I said, in this case, it's a billable item. Most cases it won't be. So down below with these non-billable items, these are things that won't show up on your bill to CSU. They're not a part of your program fee, but they are things that you should be, they're costs that you should be anticipating having for your education abroad experience. And we do our best on these budget sheets to try to estimate what those costs will be for you as accurately as possible. Things that are very likely to show up in the non-billable section would be your passport fees. If you either don't have a passport or you need to get it renewed, it's going to be about $175. Definitely want to plan for personal expenses. These would be things like getting souvenirs, getting meals out while you're abroad, maybe going on different activities. Like if you want to go scuba diving while you're in Honduras, maybe you want to budget a little extra money for that. All the kind of general spending money that you want to have, that's where that's going to show up. For this program, it's only showing $200. That's because this is a winter break program. It's very short term. They're only there for a couple of weeks. And so we think about 200 might be enough. For a semester program though, you may want $2,000 in spending money. Again, that's a number that you have to come up with on your own. And I'll talk in our next slide, I'll talk a little bit more about how you can kind of figure out what that big number would be. And then immunizations. It's good to know if there are required immunizations to enter the country that you're wanting to go to. These are almost never included in your program fee, and they are an additional cost that you need to plan for as you're preparing to go abroad. And then there are some immunizations that are just recommended, but they're not required. Last thing I want to mention before I move on, while we're still looking at this budget sheet, is what's typically not included in this non-billable section is kind of like emergency money. This would be things, just a small pot of money that you might want to have just in case something comes up that's unexpected. This could be a positive thing, like an opportunity to go do a really cool hike somewhere in the other side of the country and you need some money to get transportation to get to that area. Or this could be potentially like an unexpected health-related event where maybe you just need some money for medicine or a clinic visit, things like that. All right, I'm gonna move us along. So as you're creating your own budget for yourself, it's important for you to take a few moments and think about all the expenses that you have currently here in your life, CSU. What are the things that you're spending money on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, and put them in context. Think about, are these things that I need to have, or are they just things that I've wanted, but maybe I could do without having them every day? Maybe I just have them a couple times a week instead. And that can highlight some really interesting areas where you could save money for your time abroad ahead of time, which is a great way to plan. Here's just a couple examples. So a cup of brewed coffee at Starbucks every day might add up to about $160 per semester, which if we look at what that might translate to for an education abroad program, that's about as much as health insurance for a semester on a long-term program, give or take. Again, take all of these figures with a grain of salt, because what you actually spend money on and what your actual program costs will be are all very variable. Another example, one tall latte every weekday costs about $240 per semester. That's going to equate to about 2 weeks of room and board abroad. Again, totally depends on where you're going and what kind of accommodations that you're choosing to set yourself up in, but just a good idea. About 5 lunches out each week might equate to about $480 per semester, which on average is about half of an international round trip plane ticket. That's a significant amount of money, and is something you may want to consider for yourself very seriously. How many times a week are you eating out when maybe you could prepare your own meals and save a good deal of money to afford things like your international flight, or maybe even just added activities that you want to do while you're abroad. And then the last one dinner out each week costs about $190 per semester, which could equate to your passport or check baggage fees for your program abroad. Mentioning all of these things just so that you start to, as you prepare a budget for your time abroad, the first step is really to look at what you're doing right now and identify areas where you could actually start saving money to start paying for things abroad. And then consider, while you're abroad, what are the things that you want to maintain while you're there? Maybe you still want to eat out while you're overseas a couple times a week. That's totally fine. Just make sure that you've prepared yourself and your budget to do that, so that you don't end up in a desperate situation where you've run out of money unexpectedly. You're still in country for a few more weeks or maybe even a month, and you're needing to phone home to a friend, trying to get additional funds available. All right, so up next, we're going to talk about crowdfunding. I wanted to pause and see if there were any questions from the crowd so far, because I know budgeting can be kind of a big, beastly topic, and I just hit the tip of the iceberg with it. Remember, you're free to jump in on video or just submit a question to the chat. All right. So let's talk about crowdfunding. When we're thinking about ways that we can raise money for our time abroad, there's a lot of different avenues. If you're in this meeting, it's likely that you've already explored potentially what your financial aid looks like for going abroad. You may have already considered scholarships, and you're realizing, hey, I might need just a little bit more to really make this happen comfortably for myself. Crowdfunding is a really powerful way to raise some significant funds with not a ton of effort on your end. And so we bring it up here. We're going to talk about some of the benefits of it and look at a few examples of crowdfunding pages just to give you an idea. Again, we don't have enough time to go into a tremendous amount of detail in crowdfunding today, but I'd encourage you, if you have questions or you need a little extra support in building your own crowdfunding page, please reach out to me or anyone in the Education Abroad office. We'd be more than happy to kind of troubleshoot and talk through different ideas and solutions. So crowdfunding is essentially asking your network of people, friends, family, your community around you for a little support to go abroad. And I think there's a lot of emotions that might come up, maybe some stigma around asking people for money to go abroad. Our perspective in education abroad is it's really not a solo effort. If you had to do everything to get abroad by yourself, to raise all the money, figure all the details out, it would be a tremendous burden. And so this is a time in your life when you can reach out and ask for a helping hand. And oftentimes, a lot of people will care about your education abroad experience more than you might think. which is where crowdfunding can be a really awesome way to engage your community in helping you make this experience happen. So at CSU, we see students all the time take advantage of crowdfunding platforms. And the average amount, just so you have an idea, is about $1,500 to $2,000 that gets raised on a platform prior to departure. That's a significant amount of money. And while it may seem small in comparison to your program cost, that can actually go a really long way when you add up all the other potential sources of funding for your program. And it might even just make things a little bit easier, take a little bit of the financial stress burden off your shoulders. All right, so there's a few different ways to do crowdfunding, and it's evolving every year. When we gave this presentation last year, we were primarily talking about crowdfunding websites, specifically Fundly, Fund My Travel, GoFundMe, CrowdRise, things like that. These are platforms that are designed with the sole intention of raising money for some cause. These are great. They're very easy to use. They're kind of plug and play, where they've got the design set up. You just enter your information, you add your photos, and set your bank account up to it, and it's more or less good to go. A pretty big downfall of this is that they do charge a 5%, well, on average, a 5% fee. So 5% of the total funds that you raise on that platform is the charge that they're going to take away when your fundraiser closes, and that's to basically pay for their admin costs. With that, though, it is kind of nice because it's one place where you can securely raise the money. You can reach out to all of your friends, your network, your community, to help them see what it is you're hoping to do, and to ask for support. But there's some other options now. So this year, I'm going to start promoting things like PayPal and Venmo. It's really easy to set up a free account where there won't be that 5% charge when you go to cash in your fundraising money. And so there's kind of a workaround. If you're wanting to save a little bit of extra cash here, it will require slightly more work. But if you're wanting to use one of these, you can actually create a free website using Wix or Weebly. If you Google search free website platforms, several options are going to come up. Some are more easy than others. And you can really quickly see the reviews of which ones are the most user-friendly and which ones aren't. But through a Wix platform, let's use for an example, you could very easily create your fundraising page. You can add a photo of yourself, a quick bio of what you're hoping to do on your Education Abroad program. You could add a link to your program website. You could add some photos about the country you're hoping to go to. You could talk about some of the learning outcomes, what this will mean for you in your personal goals, your career goals, your educational goals, things like that. And then you can link that website to your Venmo account or maybe your PayPal account, where when your fundraiser is all said and done, you can very quickly transfer that money into your bank account without any extra fees associated with it. Takeaway from this slide is there's kind of two ways to do crowdfunding. If you're someone who's not super tech savvy or maybe doesn't want to spend a whole lot of time designing and building a website, even a simple one, then perhaps it would be worth that 5% fee for you to go to a site like Fundly, Fund My Travel, GoFundMe, CrowdRise. Any one of them will be great. If you're someone who's like, I think I could do this, it's going to save me a good amount of money, and I think I know how to make a website all right, and I already have Venmo, so let's do that. Definitely would encourage you to explore that option. And as a reminder, myself and all the coordinators in Education Abroad are more than happy to help you troubleshoot or even just review your content if you need. All right, so we're going to move into a couple examples of what your crowdfunding page might look like. This is our first one. This is actually from the GoFundMe website. And so I don't have an example of what a Wix site might look like, but they're all going to be sort of similar. You can build a Wix or a Weebly site to look very similar to this without a whole lot of effort. So I chose, for the sake of this presentation, we're just going to use the GoFundMe model, knowing that it's going to look very similar no matter what platform you're going on. All right, so this is Catherine. Catherine's hoping to go to Tanzania on a School for Field Studies program. These are just a couple screenshots of her crowdfunding page through GoFundMe. This page looks good. I'm wondering if anyone in the crowd would be willing to jump in and give a little feedback. If there's anything about this page that you think might be able to be improved, maybe changed, enhanced, that might make this stronger, more appealing to Catherine's community to help her raise a little bit more money. I realize I'm putting you all on the spot, so no worries if you don't have any ideas. We'll go over everything. All right, so for me, when I look at this, I think it's a decent looking page. There's nothing glaringly wrong with it at first glance. But I think that it could be greatly enhanced by maybe reducing the amount of text a little bit, perhaps using things like bolding different sections of her page or the titles of different sections to make it a little bit easier for a reader to navigate different information about what she's hoping to do. I love that she has a map of Tanzania and has kind of outlined where she'll be during her program. But I'd love to see more pictures here. If I was someone who didn't know anything about Tanzania, I would love to know, okay, well, why is she so excited about Tanzania? Can I see pictures that are going to get me excited for her? Love that she has a picture of herself right away on the front page. And it's really clear how much money she's hoping to raise and how much progress she's made towards that goal so far. But again, I think just a few more ways to kind of capture the audience might help make this a stronger, more enticing crowdfunding page.
Christina agrees with you on that. So she put a comment in chat, and she also thinks that's a good point too.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Christina. One more thing that you might consider, oftentimes education abroad programs have their own website, and there's more than often videos or promotional videos on that website that you could link to your crowdfunding page. That's a really nice way to really quickly get your community excited about the program with you, because kind of the purpose, right? You want to sell your community in the same way that you were sold on the program. You want to get them excited about it with you so that they're more likely to help fundraise with you. All right, I'm going to move on to another example. My slides might be sticking just a little bit. Oh, there we go. Okay, here's Kayla. Kayla's hoping to do social work in India. This is actually a short-term faculty-led program here at CSU. Very similar. Again, this is a GoFundMe page. So we're working with the same platform, again, just for consistency across the examples. As a reminder, this information can very easily be translated to multiple different platforms though. I love that she's got a picture of herself right away off the bat with a Rams Abroad flag. She's got the amount that she's hoping to raise up at the top, and her progress tracking. One thing, I kind of talked about this in the last example, but if you look down at the bottom right-hand picture, you can kind of see how she's used bold text to really clearly organize the different kind of bits of information she wants her community to know about her program. I like that she's done, you can see she's broken down specific costs, room and board, 1627, education abroad fee, 350, the flight going to be 1800, other expenses, $200. That's a really important thing because people then, everybody in your community is going to have a different giving ability, right? And so seeing really specific costs and what they pay for outlined like that on a crowdfunding page is a really powerful way to get those expenses paid for. If your Uncle Richard, who's grand philanthropist, sees that, oh, this person, I could pay for their room and board and flight by just giving them about $3,500. Awesome. That helps Richard out a lot. He knows what his money's going towards, and it's probably going to make him more likely to donate. Another thing I really like about this page is there's a link to her program's website. So if Uncle Richard wants to know more about social work in India, he can just click that link and he can go to the specific program page to learn all the nitty-gritty details about it if he so chooses. In this case, Kayla actually, she set an initial goal for herself for fundraising. She quickly exceeded that goal. And so she set a new fundraising goal. She was able to set the bar even just a little bit higher, saying, oh, wow, hey, I reached this goal. If I were to raise, $1,000 more, it's going to open up these 3 more activities that I wouldn't have otherwise had on my radar to afford. So that's a really interesting thing to think about if you become really successful with your crowdfunding platform. All right, I'm going to move on. So, like I just mentioned, you don't have to have a specific amount in mind to fundraise for. You could do anything from $500, you could do up to $5,000. Try to make it relevant to the program that you're hoping to do. What I mean is if you're going on a short-term CSU program that costs $3,500 and you're asking for $7,000, then it's going to be kind of hard for you to justify the extra $2,500 that you're asking for to your community, right? However, if your program cost is $3,500 and you're asking for $2,000, that's a really respectable goal. That means, hey, I'm doing my best. I'm covering $1,500 of this program fee with my other resources. I need a little extra help though to really make it happen. 2,000 would really make this a reality for me. Things like that, things to consider, just making sure that you set a realistic goal and a goal that your community is going to be receptive to. I see something came through in the chat. That's a great point, CSU Education Abroad. Okay, thank you, George. I think this was in regards to our previous slide. Let me see if I can go back. Oh, no. Here, George is saying one big thing that looks to be missing is a deeper explanation of why she's excited about this opportunity and how this program will contribute to her future healthcare slash career slash academic goals, etc. Really, really valuable point. Um, and that is crucial if you're building your own crowdfunding page. Just like in a scholarship application, you really need to explain um, the why. Like, why are you excited about this program specifically? And then how is this going to help you achieve your academic career and personal goals? Really great point. Thanks for bringing that up. All right. So just a couple more things to consider as you are building out your crowdfunding platform. Take just a small paragraph and share your story. What, like I think George mentioned, um, explain why you're excited about this program and what it will do for you to be able to go on. Make your page really easy to read. Most people, you may have experienced this yourself, when you're presented with a huge amount of text that's not very well defined, we're kind of like a deer in headlights and very unlikely to read the whole thing. So do your best to make short snippets, maybe use bullet points, section them out with bolded text, things like that. Make the information accessible to your reader in these ways. Use a great cover photo. If you need help getting a cover photo, maybe you don't have one of yourself that really is going to speak to your education abroad experience, you're more than welcome to come to our office and we can pull out a #RamsAbroad flag for you. And just like you see the woman in this picture, we can take a really awesome picture for you to use. And then don't just have one picture. Try to have multiple pictures, multiple different types of pictures. You saw in the first example, there was a map of where that student was hoping to go with kind of stars of everywhere she was going to be during her program. That's awesome. Maybe you try to add a link to a video, or if you're really tech savvy, maybe you can embed a video onto your page. And then absolutely link the Education Abroad program website to your crowdfunding page so that those who are really curious to know more about it can find that out really easily. All right, just a few more tips here. As you're writing your story, try to build some emotion. Try to steer away from real generic text like, oh, I'm excited about this trip or this opportunity. Make it seem really personal. Try to bring your readers in ways where you can give them specific details that might captivate them about what the experience might be like and what it's going to mean for you. When looking at different crowdfunding sources, a really powerful tool is if you can find someone who might be willing to match your fundraising efforts. What this means is maybe there's a local business or maybe a local organization like Rotary Club or Lions Club, or maybe you have a family member or a really close friend or mentor who might be willing to match whatever money you raise on your platform. They'll contribute that same amount, so you actually double your money. Something to consider. May not be an option for everyone, and that's okay. It certainly isn't for most students, but just think through your network and potentially reach out to other organizations. If it's an option, absolutely explore it. You may consider using some of your scholarship funds to help reach your goal. So rather than trying to put all the pressure on raising every amount of money possible through crowdfunding, maybe you're also applying for a couple scholarships, and if you get them, awesome, you can contribute that money into your total like goal tracker so that people know how much you're doing to contribute, and you can even list it on your website. Um, if you want to create your own graphics, Canva is a really nice website where you can create a custom graphic. You can put that on your page if you want. Mentioned this previously, but sometimes it's worthwhile to create an initial fundraising goal, and then have in the back of your mind, like, well, if I were to reach this initial goal, maybe I would, and I had time, maybe I would expand that goal into a stretch goal. So I really need $2,000, but well, if I could get $3,000, that would make this experience like out of this world amazing. Things to consider. And then as you publish your platform, your crowdfunding platform, it's always smart to have kind of an initial investor for that first day you launch it. This is just a way to show that there's activity happening with your fundraiser, kind of can help with that perception that there's momentum behind your cause, things like that. It doesn't need to be a lot of money, 20 to 50, maybe $100 would definitely suffice. All right. So when you are crafting the language for your crowdfunding page, there's just a few things in terms of language that you should be really careful about. We've broken this down on this slide for words that you should really stay away, words and phrases that maybe you want to stay away from, powerful words that you may want to utilize more so. I'm not going to go through them all right now. I think the big takeaway here is try to stay away from words like trip or I'm so broke or I didn't get any scholarships. Those aren't things that are going to bode well for fundraising and education abroad program. You really should be trying to get people supporting you for the educational pursuit, how it's going to help you grow as a person. And kind of the word trip or excursion or travel every weekend, those might connotate that this seems more like, excuse me, a vacation maybe, which is not, of course, the case for education abroad. Let's see, you got another comment. Thank you notes, virtual and real cards, and regularly engaging with your investors is another good tip. Would be greatly appreciated by them. Absolutely. Yep. If you're getting money in, it is crucial, I think, that you send thank you notes and be really quick to respond and say thank you to the people who are donating to you. And staying engaged, let people know as you're abroad, maybe send the people who donated to you, send them pictures of what you're getting to see and do. Continue to send them thanks for their help and support. All goes a really long way, and it makes the donor feel a lot better about the investment that they made. That's a great point. All right, so you might be asking, how are you going to get the word out about your crowdfunding page? Well, we have this fabulous thing called social media nowadays, which is probably the most efficient way to spread your efforts far and wide. Long gone are the days of snail mail for getting the word out. Social media, you could within 24 hours have your entire community and probably more aware of what you're trying to do. Also on there, you can keep your community updated. You can let them know your progress towards your fundraising goal. Say in the first week you hit your initial goal. How cool would that be? Celebrate it on social media with your community. Keep that hype alive and share, hey, I'm going to share with you my stretch goal. Here's the things that this extra $1,000 or whatever your amount is, this is what it will do for me. This is how it's going to enhance my program. Here's my new goal. Here's the new deadline, things like that. It's a great way to keep your community engaged with your progress. Another way to do this, because we know there's certain people who are just not on social media, good for them. um, Send the link out via email. And it's okay if the same people you're sending over email are in your social media as well. It's okay to hit them up in a couple different places. It helps remind people, maybe they're too busy when they see it on Instagram, but then they get the email and they're like, oh yeah, I actually would like to explore this more. And I happen to be at my computer now. I'm going to go look at this page. Um, and then talk to your friends, your family, talk to people in your network. Let them know when you're interacting with them. Say, hey, this is what I want to do. I have this page. Would you be interested? I can send you the link. Things like that. All right. I've been talking a whole lot, so I want to pause for questions, see if anyone's got anything on their mind before I move on. All right. Looks like we're good, so we're going to keep trucking along. All right. So beyond crowdfunding, there's a few other ways that you can start to find financial resources to fill the gaps that you have identified in your budget. Like I said, one of the bigger expenses that tend to be additional, in addition to your program fee, is your flight. Um, Maybe you have someone in your network who you know has an abundance of frequent flyer miles that maybe they'd be willing to share with you. That can go a long way at reducing the cost of your flight, or maybe even paying for it in full. You could cook an elaborate dinner for your friends and charge a cover fee if you wanted to, or you could just cook a dinner for your friends and say, hey, I'm hoping to raise some money for my education abroad. If you want to donate after this dinner, could be a great way to do that. Um, Probably more powerful than that, I'd say, is birthday or holiday gifts. So these happen every year. We turn another year older, holidays come, whether we want them to or not. Um, and you can just let your community know, like, hey, instead of a wrapped gift this year, maybe would you contribute to my funding page? Help me go on this education abroad experience. I really need some support. That can be a pretty awesome way to do it. And people love giving um, experiences to other people because the depth of meaning is so much greater. You could look at getting some part-time side hustle jobs, shoveling snow, maybe you mow some lawn, um, maybe you clean some of your community members' houses, things like that. Especially over the summer, if you have that time, these can be a really great way to bring in some extra cash for your time overseas. Keep reevaluating your expenses. So definitely spend the time to create a budget for yourself at the beginning. Look at your budget now, figure out what your budget will be abroad, and then keep reevaluating that as you're preparing to go. See where you can reduce spending right now to save for your time overseas. If you've got a lot of stuff, which who doesn't these days, maybe go through it. Have a garage sale. Sell your items online. If you have extra things that you're not going to need, you want to declutter. Gosh, follow Marie Kondo's advice. Watch some of her episodes on Netflix and then get to it. Sell some of the stuff that you don't need anymore, that maybe is no longer bringing you joy. Turn it into cash to help you go do a really awesome experience abroad. And then last thing, if you really have a lot of time to prepare, open a savings account where you can add extra cash that you have each month into it, and you don't touch it, you don't even have it available to you, you know it's there, and then you can cash that in when you head out